Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Dr. Arnold Nerenberg. I've been a clinical psychologist for over 46 years, licensed in the state of California. But I've been in practice about 50 years. And I've walked upon this earth, it'll be 80 years this May. So I'm bringing to bear all my experiences and insights and inspirations and errors, because a lot of my knowledge came from making mistakes along the way, let me tell you that. The title of today's presentation is How to Overcome Loneliness Over the Holidays. How to overcome loneliness over the holidays. And I'm dedicating this presentation to Ms. Alicia Gutierrez. This can apply to the holidays or any other time. There's a loneliness when there's nobody around. Particularly the holidays, we have a pandemic now, you're not in the presence of your loved ones or your relatives. You won't be able to embrace each other. You might have cousins, uncles, aunts, friends. There might be some people you're around, but it could be the loneliness of not having others. But there's a second type of loneliness, and that's the loneliness when you're around others. You can be very lonely around others. And we're going to talk what causes that and what's the cure. So when we talk about how to overcome it, there's two types. When you're by yourself or just with a few people, then you're missing so many others. And when you're with others and you're feeling very isolated and lonely with them, what causes that? So let's go through, we've all been lonely at some point in our lives. That's a normal human emotion. We're basically social creatures, social beings. We desperately need one another. A normal human being desperately needs other human beings. You have some that might have some variation in their DNA and they can go sit in a cave for years and they're okay, but that's the exception. If, for instance, if man and woman didn't desperately need each other, men would have stayed in their caves, women in their caves, and that would have been the end of the species. So we're hardwired to desperately need one another. Desperately. It's not just a casual thing that we need each other. It's a desperate needing of one another. And if that's interfered with, there are serious psychological consequences. Now, let's look at divorce. A person who's getting divorced, normally they have the children, the spouse together, maybe grandparents or whatever. And when you're single, either through divorce or broke up in a relationship, man and woman splitting up, or you just didn't have anybody. It's not even through a divorce. A situation where you don't have a significant other. You don't have anybody that you belong to and belongs to you. And we all need somebody that we belong to and belongs to us. Absolutely. Absolutely. We need to have somebody who they know that they're the first priority to us, and we know we're the first priority to them. An absolute necessity. Now, many of you, including myself in my younger years, you could be somewhere and you have nobody, and you're seeing men and women walking by holding hands, or men and women walking by, the man has his arms around the waist of his wife or his girlfriend, and there you are. It's a world where people are paired off, and there we are at a particular time in our lives by ourselves. That just accentuates the loneliness. That accentuates it. Or you have friends who are going to have family gatherings and you don't have that. You think, gee, that's so nice that you have it. But just knowing that it exists, that people are all getting together and you're not. And of course, we're talking non-pandemic times. This is the year 2020. We're during the pandemic where we're not going to be gathering in large groups at all. Now, it's also extremely lonely and sad. There's been a death in the family, a death of a loved one, a spouse, a parent, a child, God forbid, a relative, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent. And particularly, we're talking the holidays, we're talking Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year. This is that time of year. And particularly the first year, you don't have the person, you're missing that person. And you could be with others, but you're just forlorn, and you're lonely, you're missing. So that missing is a type of loneliness. It's a loneliness where you're lonely for that person. You just wish you could see that person one more time, hear that person's voice one more time, hold that person one more time. And I need to tell you that I personally, as a psychologist, but more than that, as a human being, I feel enormous compassion for those who are lonely. Enormous compassion. And I just wish I could reach out to each and every person who's lonely and say, you're not alone, and some way to have that person not be alone. That's what's in my heart towards everyone, truthfully. In the past, I've given lectures and wrote a book called Overcoming World Loneliness. There's so much isolation and loneliness. It's just exacerbated, made worse over the holidays. It can't be made worse over the holidays. Of course, when all is going well, everybody's alive and you're together, you're not in a pandemic, and it's a wonderful gathering and a warm glow comes over the group. Now, a lot of people are going to be missing that this year because the pandemic is here. Now, I had a patient, and he's from Mexico, and he yearned to see his parents. He hadn't seen them in 9 years. They were in Mexico, all did work, they sent money there. He was such a devoted son, a beautiful, beautiful young man, beautiful. But it was like 9 years, hadn't seen his parents, and he had nobody here. He had nobody. Everybody had somebody. He had no relatives, and he was extremely lonely over the holidays. So that's that one caused by lack of loved ones around him. And he kept saying to me, I have nobody. I have nobody. And he knew a friend who had a gathering and whatnot. And he actually called his friend and said, can I come over during the holidays? And the friend said, sure, come on over. And he came over, but he had to ask. He had to ask his friend, can I join you? So we have people from other lands who are here, perhaps by themselves, or somebody with a green card, a foreigner from wherever. And they're feeling lonely. They miss their country. They miss their parents. They miss their relatives. So these are a type of loneliness when you don't have somebody. Now, let's look at a situation where you have people coming over and some close people that you feel are safe. And this is a pandemic, so they wear masks and do social distancing, and so they have a few people over. But there's a barrier between you and one or two other people there. You've had some problems about emotional things and misunderstandings. Could be financial, could be an argument and misunderstanding over something, whatever it is. And you're around that person and the situation is not resolved. And so you remember how much that person hurt your feelings, but you don't feel free to talk about it. It's just you want to talk about it. You want to talk about it in a respectfully real manner to make it better, not worse. But you feel lonely because you're cut off. There's a barrier, the barrier between you and others around you. Now, the other way there could be a barrier is, let's say everybody's talking about football and you're not interested in the games, or they're talking about baseball or basketball, and that's the last thing you're interested in. So you just feel left out. You just feel left out, which is a form of loneliness. You feel just left out of the conversation. We've all been there. You feel left out. Or we just went through we're still in the midst of really political turmoil, and everybody here is a member of the other party, and you're this party, and they're so angry at your party, and so they're talking politics, and they're angry at you and what you represent in your party, and you're cut off. And it's not even personal, but the energy of being cut off and alienated from one another. Alienation, estrangement over political views. It used to be over religious views. Now, politics has replaced religion for people's, zeal. So this is then being lonely around others. So now, the cure for the loneliness around others, it's a little different than the loneliness when you're by yourself. The cure for the loneliness around others is to realize you have the right to be who you are. I want to say that again to each one of you. The foundation for overcoming loneliness, actually in both circumstances, where you're alone or you're with people and you feel cut off, is you have the right to be who you really are. Now, I know nobody's ever told you that. You have the right to be who you truly truly are. You don't have to pretend to be somebody or something you're not. You don't have to pretend. But that is one caveat to that. You have the right to be who you truly are, your genuine self, as long as the expression of yourself is in what I call a respectfully real manner. What do I mean by respectfully real? Let me give you a little example to illustrate the paradigm. Let's make a distinction between real and respectfully real. So being real could be, here be an example of being real. Hey bro, I think you're stupid and ugly. I can't stand you, never liked you. I don't want to even see you again. Just being real, bro. Well, that's being real. That just creates more alienation. It puts a wall or a barrier. Now, respectfully real, here's a hypothetical respectfully real situation with the same circumstance. Say, hey, bro, when you said what you did, I felt hurt and humiliated. I really did. I know you didn't intend to, but I do feel that way. If you could find that in your heart to apologize, I'd be grateful. Now, that opens a connection. They may not apologize, they might, but they're more likely to talk to you about it. They care about you to say, oh, man, I didn't know. I'm so sorry, bro. You know, they might go that way, or they might go, hey, don't be a baby. So, you know, there's some risk. I'm not saying there's not any risk. There is. But you have a right to say that, and that's respectfully real communication builds a bridge or a connection. So once you understand that you have the right to be who you truly are, as long as the expression of your true self is done in a respectfully real manner. And respectfully real communication is the essence of what I call honorable communication. Honorable communication. And you may want to, and that, of course, you know, you might say, you know, I feel hurt by what you did the other day. I want to work that out with you because I love you and I care about the relationship. Let's talk. And then that's creating a connection. You say, I want to talk about it, not to make it worse, but to see if we can lift that barrier. So that's creating a unity. Whatever creates unity in a constructive way, that's honorable. Unity, or the quest for unity, is highly honorable. Now, let's look at where you can't see your relatives of the pandemic. There's some people you really want to be able to see, and you can't. Well, the concept here to deal with that is honor before loneliness. Honor before loneliness. So loneliness matters, but even what matters more is honor. You're lonely, and that can be intense. You can even be crushed with loneliness. You feel like you're just at a void, an emptiness, and I feel compassion for that. I really do. Just wish I could put my hand out and say, I'm here with you. I really am. That's truly what's in my heart. So you're feeling lonely. Now that loneliness, that feeling could get you totally self-absorbed. Oh, gee, I just feel so terrible. It can just pull you into yourself. Now, but once you're what I call a disciple of honor, we're going to talk about how to achieve to becoming a disciple of honor, then the disciple of honor and taking the pledge to be a disciple of honor is a path out of that self-absorption, a path out of that self-centeredness, a path out of being trapped in your own thought and feeling. Because the way of honor means serving others and putting honor before everything. Honor before anger, honor before pride, honor before sex, honor before money, honor before fear, honor before cravings, honor before feeling hurt, honor before life itself. Now that's being a devotee of honor once you subscribe to what I call the Supremacy of Honor Code. So we're going to talk about disciple of honor and Supremacy of Honor Code. But what I want to tell you is the secret to overcoming loneliness is not to try to make the loneliness go away, but to pursue honor in the midst of it. In the midst of your own loneliness, you then use what I call the bridge. It is, what's the most honorable thing to think, say, and do? So you're hurting, as I've hurt in my life, as we all have. But you're going to move beyond that. In the midst of your own suffering, you're going to reach out beyond that in ways to make it a better world, to help other people who are also suffering. And we're going to talk about that. Now, You look particularly at, let's say, elders. And particularly during the pandemic, I mean, they could be stuck in their apartments, the retirement home, the convalescent home, in their homes or whatever. And they really they didn't have the mobility anyhow. They could be not that mobile anymore. And keep this in mind, when people get older, so, 60, 70, 80, 90 and above, a lot of their relatives and friends are gone. They passed away. They died typically from heart attacks, strokes, cancer, but they're gone. So the most honorable thing to think, say, and do, one possibility is to find some way to reach out in some way to these who are really the neglected. And the worst thing about our elderly in a society in the United States of America is that they feel useless. In fact, many just are waiting to die. They were useful when they were younger, then when they retired or they weren't working anymore, their family's grown. And a lot of times the children aren't around. They moved to other states. We're a very mobile society. It's not like it used to be 100 years ago where you stayed in the same city, the same village, the same town. They're all over the place. And then, of course, you have people with no children. So that's a particular targeted group. And when people don't have a good social network, they have a shorter lifespan. They're more prone to every illness there is. We need each other to actually stay alive. So this is a time to then, when you think, what's the most honorable thing to think, say, and do, is what can I do for these people that are suffering? That's just a possibility. There may not be anything you can do, but there might be something you can do with your own relatives, to start with, your own family, and then others. Or it could be somebody's infirm, or they're in a convalescent home, or in a hospital, and they really feel cut off. They just have nurses and assistants and doctors walking by, and they don't feel that connection, that love over the holidays, or whatever it is. There's a loneliness to that and a vulnerability. So let's talk about now the way of honor and the way to strengthen yourself. You need to be very deeply strengthened and committed to the way of honor to deal with that loneliness, so that the loneliness will either dissipate, or the quality of loneliness changes, or you're at least productive during the loneliness. You don't want to be just lonely and it's a waste of time. It's just suffering with no good coming from it. No, you want good. If you're going to be lonely, now let's look at the worst case scenario where you're just going to be lonely. Well, you want to say that there's good that will come from this loneliness. That's what you want. So the 4 commandments, so you need to know the 4 commandments of honor, the foundation for the whole honor system. So it's I wish you well. So you're wishing the people well. That's a big step. That gets you a connection to everybody. That I wish you well. You can think about specific people, or just say, I wish you well. That second commandment, I take full responsibility for co-creating my reality and my problems. You're co-creating that loneliness. There are things you can do to either reduce it or change the quality of it or to use it productively. So there's loneliness, and then there's productive use of the loneliness. For instance, during loneliness, you might write some beautiful poetry, or you might write some profound story or a movie. You can use that loneliness time to produce great works of art. And that's what typically is the source of great creativity, is suffering of various sorts, such as loneliness. Now, the third one is I'm grateful for the power I gain from hardship. I'm grateful for the power I gain from hardship. Well, nobody wants to be lonely, but then you have the faith. You say, I'm going to get stronger from this loneliness. You're going to become more compassionate to the loneliness in the world. You're going to achieve more wisdom. There's no such thing as wisdom without suffering. No such thing as wisdom without suffering. I can feel this deep, profound compassion for you and all humanity. Heck, even animals, you don't want them lonely. Do you know even plants, trees, their roots underground go and meet each other and wrap into one? Does that mean it's a way of some kind of connection at another level? I'm not saying it is, but it's interesting that that's what happens with their roots. They want that connection, perhaps. Certainly animals, really need that. You see birds flying together, and some birds mate for life. There's that need for that companionship. So then the fourth commandment of honor is one of two. Either if you believe in God, as I do, God, your wish is my only wish. Or I seek always to serve my highest values if you don't want to address God. Now, if you go, God, your wish is my only wish, you go, in your loneliness, God, whatever you wish. I want to do your will, whatever it is, to my wish to become, your wish is my wish. So if you wish for me to be lonely right now, I want to be lonely. If you wish me not to be lonely, I don't want to be lonely. But if you have no preference, Lord, I prefer not to be lonely. God doesn't have preference over every little thing. So once you then attune yourself to God's will in that way, then you can also at least ask the question, God, how do you want me to serve others during this time of loneliness for myself and others? That's a very powerful question to ask. And if you don't believe in God or you don't want to address God, you go, I seek always to serve my highest values. And then whatever those are, it'll probably involve reaching out to others or reducing suffering of others. So those are the four commandments of honor. Now, that being said is not enough. For you to really walk this path to overcoming loneliness over the holidays or any time, you need to commit yourself to life to the four commandments of honor. So then you take what I call the pledge. And the pledge goes this way. I'm raising my right hand. Here's the pledge. As a disciple of honor, I pledge myself all the days of my life to the four commandments of honor. And I'll teach them to those I love. I'll repeat them every morning, afternoon, and evening, and listen to myself recite them. There you go. You could offer that pledge to others, but I'll tell you why. Here's a fact. I've administered that pledge to over 1,100 people. And over 95% of the people feel good right away. Over 95% of the people feel hope right away. So when you're feeling good and you're feeling hope, hope is one step of transcending loneliness. You need to know that. Hope is one step towards overcoming loneliness. And then over 92% feel more meaning in their lives. These are all very fulfilling types of feelings. And people get it instantly, immediately. Now, to increase the probability that these commandments, you're going to apply them in all situations, I have what's called the bridge from honor to reality. And the bridge is this. What's the most honorable thing to think, say, and do? What's the most honorable thing to think, say, and do? So you're doing the four commandments of honor and then that. God, for me, it would be God, your wish is my only wish. I wish you well. I take full responsibility for co-creating my reality and my problems. I'm grateful for the power I gained from hardship. What's the most honorable thing to think, say, and do? 8 seconds for the four commandments of honor, 4 seconds for the bridge. That's 12 seconds, that's 36 seconds a day. It's not exciting to say it, but it's not long enough to be boring. Just remember this. Repetition is preparation for application. The application is awesome. The repetition, some people do get a good feeling from it. I typically don't. But I apply it, and it's awesome, I can tell you that. Now, there are two derivatives of what I call the warrior's commandment of honor. I'm grateful for the power I gained from hardship. There are two derivatives, which is, one, I'll come back stronger than ever, and two, what's the best true story I can tell myself about this problem? So if you're feeling lonely, you say, well, I'm lonely now, but I'm going to come back stronger than ever. So that gives you hope. It's a step in a constructive, positive direction. Or the other, what's the best true story I can tell myself about this problem, about this loneliness? Well, it's going to give me more compassion for others. It's going to, I feel motivated to sing, write some music. I feel motivated to call out to my uncle that I haven't talked to in 5 years. You know, wonderful things can come from the loneliness. Wonderful things. So those are two derivatives from the warrior's commandment of honor. I'm grateful for the power I gained from hardship. Then you have what I call the Supremacy of Honor Code. The Supremacy of Honor Code, which I mentioned earlier, is basically involves honor before loneliness, but it's more expansive than that. Honor before pride, honor before anger, honor before money, honor before sex, honor before fear, honor before cravings, honor before hurt feelings. Honor before life itself. So if you take then a pledge to be a devotee of honor, you're agreeing to repeat that 3 times a day for the rest of your lives with the commandments of honor in the bridge. So that pledge goes this way. As a devotee of honor, I pledge myself all the days of my life to the Supremacy of Honor Code, and I'll bring it to the world for a more just society. So here now, the first one, to be a disciple of honor, you're bringing it to yourself and your loved ones. This is now a pledge to bring it to the world. You're a devotee of honor. So it's not just a psychological system, although originally I developed the honor system as a psychotherapy model of reframing our experiences. And now it's expanded into a social movement for the homeless, for marriage, for the schools, for athletics, for all areas of life. We have programs, educational programs, for parenting, for all areas. Now, as a disciple of honor, and certainly as a devotee of honor, which is that's a really advanced level, it will fill you with a sense of purpose. Now, when you have a sense of purpose and goals and direction, that fuels all obstacles are but fuel to be burned in the furnace of destiny. All obstacles and problems are but fuel to be burned in the furnace of destiny. As a disciple of honor, and as a devotee of honor, which is even a more advanced stage, you'll be filled with purpose, meaning, and direction. And that's extremely healing for all things, because whatever is going on, you're not going to be consumed in that, because you're much more, you're lonely. We're not denying it, but you're much more than that loneliness. Honor is the path to transform the loneliness into productivity, to use it constructively, and also a way to, even in cases, transcend it. So this is how to overcome feeling lonely over the holidays. It's really how to overcome feeling lonely anytime. But right now with these holidays, particularly during the pandemic, people are especially vulnerable, especially right now, during these uncertain times in so many ways. It's been my pleasure and my privilege to be able to present to you these vital materials. Now, we'll see. Alicia, is there anything, any question or comment you'd like to make?
I really like how you put things into perspective. It helps understand that, and everyone's loneliness is different. Whether you're a senior citizen, whether you're a younger person, everyone's feeling is different. If you're from a foreign country, everyone experiences at a different level. But at the same time, if you have the opportunity to share that with others, it's more bearable. That's my takeaway from this. So I thank you.
You're most welcome, Alicia. So Alicia was just talking about some of the dimensions of the loneliness, and certainly her feeling was that it could be made more bearable, and that's certain. In fact, even more than bearable, and even add to us as human beings in terms of our wisdom and our compassion. I can have so much compassion for you. Why? Because I've been lonely in my life. I know what it's like. If I'd never been lonely, I would have no compassion. I would have no understanding of what you're going through. None. But I've been lonely in my life in my younger years, crushingly lonely. So I just want to embrace everyone and say, that we're here with you. God is here with you. And you're here with yourself in terms of your honor. Honor before loneliness. So my privilege to present this to you. Bye for now.